So our first example is going to have to do with the different counties in North Carolina. So I'm just going to load in this data set here using demo NC. Don't worry too much about where that code comes from. This is just the way that the NC data is going to be read in. So if I run that code, you'll see now that we have our NC data, meaning North Carolina, over here in the global environment on the top right-hand side. This data set comes from a study that was done back in the 70s and the 80s on sudden infant death syndrome. And so let's just take a look at the data set. There's a bunch of different columns. If I just click it, then we'll be able to view all the different columns. So you'll notice that each row in here represents a different county in North Carolina. They use the word name here to denote the name of the county, but each row is a county. And then there's some different information on those counties. So area of the county, perimeter of the county, but some different information that we might be using here. So BIR 74, that represents the number of births in that county in 1974. SID 74, that represents the number of sudden infant deaths in that county in 1974. And there's some more information in here, and you could look up, I think I listed it in there, but what I really want to point out is this Giome column. So in this data set, this Giome column, this contains a big long list of some ugly information that essentially encodes how we are going to go through and plot. Look at that, you can even preview it there. It'll go through and show how you're going to plot that particular county. Don't worry too much about where that comes from. You're not going to interact with it too much, but that column there encodes the map information. All right, so let's go back to here. So again, I've listed out some of the names of the columns and described them in more detail if you're interested, but let's just start with plotting the map. So we're going to start with ggplot, okay? And then remember, we have to add a plus sign, okay? And then to add in the map, we're going to say Giome_SF, simple figure. And then we're going to specify the data set we want to use, which is North Carolina. So if I do that, if I run that code, ta-da! All of that information was in there in the Giome column, and it references the Giome column to create this map of North Carolina. And you can see all the different counties in North Carolina. And we've got the latitude here on the x-axis and the longitude here. I think I've got the order of those right. Don't quote me on that, but they're sort of a basic plot. One thing we might want to do is pretty it up. Same code, ggplot plus, I've added in my Giome, and then I've added in the color is black. Let's run this so you can just see and we can talk about it. This col is equal to, that's the color of the outline. So I decided that I wanted the color of the outline to be black around the counties. I thought that would look nice. And then for fill, I've got dark gray. So that means that all of these counties are going to be shaded in with dark gray. I could change that to a different color if I liked. I've added a title with this ggtitle command. And then I personally am using theme light. I think it is a nice way to sort of display maps, but there's lots of different theme options. So for example, let's change this to theme minimal just so you could see what that might look like. So if I change this to theme minimal, what you'll notice is it removes the boundary around the outside edge, or you could try theme void, and I think that'll get rid of the latitude and longitude lines entirely, right? So it's just the map. So depending on what you're creating the scrap for and what you're interested in, you may choose the different themes, but I'm gonna go with theme light just because I think it looks pretty. Okay, from there, so suppose we wanna shade each of these counties based on the number of births in 1974. So I've kind of copied and pasted the code from above. It's very similar, okay? The thing that I've added here is rather than having fill is equal to, up here I had fill is equal to dark gray. Now I've added fill is equal to birth. So the colors in there are going to depend on the number or the value for the number of births in 74. What you'll also notice is I've added it inside the aesthetics command, so AES is aesthetics, and that's simply because the fill here, this is a variable and not just a color, right? If I said I just wanted it to be filled in all red, you wouldn't need the AAS command, but because this is a variable, we do. So if I run this, you'll see, ta-da, now they've shaded each of the regions based on the number of births. So you can see there's sort of 3 or 4 counties that have a lot of births in them in that particular year, and there's a lot of counties that had much less, fewer births. So that's sort of the default. Now by default, R always uses, or ggplot will use this blue color scheme from light blue to dark blue, but we might want to customize that a little bit. So here's some options. I kind of created some things, so let me run it just so I can show you, and then we'll talk about each of these pieces. So I started with my ggplot just like I did, okay? I've got Giome SF. I think this was something from earlier that I changed. So that's still there. Okay, I've added in my AES fill. I actually did that as a separate argument, but that's fine. And then here, this Giome SF text, okay, that is going through and creating labels, okay? So that's how I'm getting the label for each of these counties in here. And rather, if I had just said, if I got rid of this, okay, if this had just been North Carolina, it would have gone through and labeled every single county, which might make sense. That may be what you're interested in, but I really just wanted to label the ones that had a high number of births. So I filtered out only the ones where the number of births in the North Carolina data set was more than 15,000. So we've got these 3 counties that met that criteria, and those ones were labeled. So again, AES, the label is equal to name, and that comes from the fact that the name column, right? That's what I want to have placed on there. I don't want to write in the number of births or something like that, right? I want to write in what the actual name is. And then I put font face bold because I thought it would make it look a little bit bolder, okay? But you could change this to italics or not include it at all. To customize the colors, I use this scale fill gradient N command, and I said specifically I want the colors to go from red to yellow. Okay, so that's how I'm getting this sort of custom color in here. I could also add in additional colors that I might want it to go through. So maybe I want it to go all the way from red to green. And I would get something that sort of looks like this. So I don't like this one at all because it's not colorblind friendly, but you can add sort of as many different colors in there as you like. You can also put in hexadecimal codes, but that's sort of how I'm getting the customization there. I still got the theme, I still got the GG title, and maybe there's a few more things I'd want to sort of update on here, right? Maybe I'd want to label the latitude and the longitude instead of X and Y, and maybe I want to clear up what this means a little bit more. But all in all, there's some sort of things that we can customize there to make the graph be what we like.